in historic areas, and the idea that the taller buildings are used as markers or defining the Main Street corridor, or maybe used as transition. So the staff, from this page, I see that they're suggesting that maybe taller buildings have a role in a historic area. So just ponder that for a few seconds. Well, if other cities thought alike, what is the role of taller buildings in Montreal's Old Town? Any takers? Oh, let's look around. Let's look around. Flash. Any role for taller buildings here? Like reinforce the edges of Flash Jacques Cartier, maybe? You can have a few taller buildings here. No, but in all seriousness, I don't think there is a role for taller buildings in a historic area, because historical areas are meant to be preserved. So there's this notion of having to define an edge for the Main Street corridor, and this is a view that I see very often because I use public transit and the SkyTrain, and I ride in from Commercial and Broadway all the time into downtown, and I get this wonderful view of the Main Street corridor. And I actually see that there is a building here at East Hastings and several buildings here and along there. So I think the edge is actually sufficiently defined, so we don't need any taller buildings, even if we accept that premise to be true. The other thing that I'm very, very concerned about is the access to the sky and the access to the sun. And the sun is very critical, especially in a northern climate like ours. And we have to admit we are a northern climate. We are north of 49 degrees. It's a different dynamic here. If we look at northern European cities like Copenhagen or Helsinki or Dublin or other, there are different, Amsterdam, Dansk, look at their responses. So, we're going to look at some of the possible sites for taller buildings, and this, I'm going to ask a couple of tough questions, so forgive me if I'm a little bit intrusive here, but I have to ask the tough questions. But basically, 4 sites have been actually already identified for taller buildings, and there's a Main Street corridor with potentially 150 to 300 feet. And what makes a site special? Because we see this word, possible special sites, and I'm going to talk about number 3, which is a spender site, so possible height 150 to 300 feet. And really, in all seriousness, are these sites currently in negotiations between city and developers? Is that what makes them special, or is there another reason? Okay, it's a tough question, but I have to ask it. So okay, so here I just draped the photo of the staff report over Google Earth. Great job by Google. And you can actually see how on East Pender that there's a site that is right here by the gardens here, and I'm not sure if it's taking up all of this block or part of this block is being considered for redevelopment. Another site here, also south of East Pender. And here is our issue of solar access. So I was actually out on January 1st. This is 4:30 p.m. in the afternoon on one of the longest days of the year, but we still get a wonderful reading of the architecture here with this north side, beautifully detailed heritage area of Chinatown. Now, the light allows the architecture to read. It also allows the access for people to walk and enjoy this site. What would it look like with shadows, with some towers, let's say, on this site number 3 that's being proposed? Well, I just did a little bit of Photoshop work. This is what I came up with. And actually, it's a lot darker than that, but I've been generous here. And then the entire experience of a pedestrian walking in this area is going to be different because it's going to become very, very, very dark, and also in the winter very cold. And we do see some towers here, but I don't think we need a transition. I think we should leave them as far away as possible from Chinatown and preserve what's already there. And to preserve the access to the sky and the sun, I don't think you need to add tall buildings. And the way you restore a historical area is to save what's there and restore the buildings to their former glory. And this will really enable an active street life. And if you look at the grid, this is zoomed in on Google Earth, you can see how wide Main Street is. It's actually 3 by 3 and a wide sidewalk. So this is actually a special street in Vancouver because of its width. And there's a lot of opportunity, but this actually allows for very, very good solar access during the morning hours on the west side and in the afternoon hours on the east side, and the way the architecture reads and the street reads different. Now, if I just go up the street to Main Street across from Pacific Central, there are towers on only one side. This is, of course, the afternoon on January the 1st. And you're going to see it's very, very dark and very cold, and this is critical for shoulder season issues. Now, I'm just looking back. You can kind of see the SkyTrain station there. And again, very cold. I know it's freezing there on my bike, riding around. And this is 15 minutes later in the day, so it's not earlier in the day. I've just gone down the street, and this is what you see. It's the same camera, and you see a completely different condition. That's because of building heights and the character of the street, and that there are actually people on the street, and there's a street light. This is Chinatown. And if Chinatown were to become like this, I think you know, that would be, I don't know what I should say, Vancouver shame, in my opinion. East Pender also has this special condition that you saw. I'm just going to skip ahead here. But in the staff report, I saw a picture of this gingerliving.com building. Now, is this a sign of things to come? Well, actually, it's even higher than this. And if there are 5 sites like that go up immediately or within the next 3 years along Main, then you're going to have a different character to Chinatown, or will we have any character left to Chinatown? And now here's kind of a sketch. I just did a little bit of Photoshop. This is very rough, but is this what we mean for Chinatown? Is this what we want? Maybe we preserve a couple of facades and we put these high-rises behind them. Is this the same? So I actually found a very interesting thing by doing the background research here. If you look at the current zoning as it stands with HA1 and HA1A, then it's already over for Chinatown, because the heights are way too high as they are. You know, if you can do 8, 10-story buildings, 120 feet in some areas, then this is gone. It's just a matter of time without raising the height limit even more. So if we want to preserve Chinatown, the area really must be dezoned immediately. And actually, here's a lot of technical detail. I'm not going to go into this, but just download the bylaws, and you can see that what the maximum height is: 15.3, 21.3, discretionary 20 meters, 27.4 meters, depending on the area, and just do the math. So these are the sorts of transformations of the city and the heart and soul of the sense of place and its key neighborhoods that require that these issues be shown to the public and dialogue takes place, meaningful dialogue, and not in this professionalized, well, you know, we know what's best for you. And I think that these images have suggested that maybe they don't know what's best for us. And the current policy threatens Chinatown. Did a couple of comparisons: 10-story buildings anywhere, with one of the areas, and 7 stories in the other area. It's too much. Or in layman's term, okay, I'm just going to ask this, don't you're threatened, but who's guarding the hen house? Okay, now I'm going to kind of transition into our talk and the public forum topics. I've given you a lot of background on the staff report, but I felt it was very important to go through it and to see what Council is going to be voting on in terms of, or debating on its final state. There are a lot of views that are currently not protected, such as wonderful views of Main Street. There's some protection on Commercial Drive that I think could be protected better. Clark Park. So there's an opportunity to do more. And things can happen very quickly in the city. I took these photos 3 years ago, and you can see towers going up. The whole Olympic Village wasn't there. The building around Main and Broadway, that intensity wasn't happening. This kind of kickstarted that desire to go up towards Main and Broadway and along that corridor to intensify that as a result of this. And there are a whole slew of rezoning signs that have gone up around 2nd and Manitoba towards Ontario and in that area. So this Olympic Village has really taken the skyscraper, well, not skyscraper, at least the mid-rise towers out. BC place looks a little bit different. The east side, some of the towers have gone up. So some things happen, but they'll happen over a few years. They'll take time, but it's very difficult to go back. You can't easily take down buildings or even take off a few floors.